Welcome back to Dr. Skull Gaming, and today I'm going to bring you 10 improvement tips that I've taken away from my first year back in chess and from my first year as a podcast host of Chess Journeys. So, here we go. Number one tip is figure out what way you learn best and lean into that, and don't worry about what other people say. So for instance, for me personally, I'm very much a book learner, and I know that. I know when I read books, I'm at my best, I'm getting my most out of them, and when I watch videos, they're kind of like popcorn for me. They're fun, I might take away a little bit, but they're not my optimal way of learning. However, if there's one thing I've learned from my podcast this year, is that a lot of people just are video learners, and they're able to take in all of that information and really consume it and be able to use that as their primary learning technique. They don't need books, they don't like books, and that's perfectly fine. We all learn differently. So figure out what's best for you and lean into that, and don't worry about what other people are saying about it. Number two, sort of closely associated with number one, be active in your learning. For me, that means taking notes. I read several books this year and took no notes on them, and unfortunately, I don't remember a word of what they say. However, there are some books I've been reading more recently, especially Shereshevsky's Endgame Strategy. I took a lot of notes. I keep looking at it. I'm constantly refreshing myself to make sure I'm really remembering what I'm supposed to take away from this book. So be active in your learning. Number three, tactics and calculation really are that important. I have a puzzle here for you if you want to try to solve it. So my suggestion would be do a lot of tactics puzzles. For a while, I was doing 25 puzzles a day. I found that was really helping. And then on top of that, I was doing deep calculation puzzles. Now, there are all kinds of different levels you can do. I've been using The Best Move by Hort and Jansa, and they're impossible, and I barely ever get them right. But what I'm doing is I'm spending 15 to 20 minutes staring at a position, trying really hard to solve it, and really pushing my mind as far as I can with my calculation. Is it the only thing you need to learn before 2000, as some people say? Of course not. You need to learn all kinds of stuff, but tactics and calculation really is that important. All right, next tip. Examine your games and do it without an engine, at least for that first run. When I first started this year, the second I would finish a game, I would flip on that engine. I would see all of the horrible moves I made and all the tactical blunders I made, and I would just go, okay, wow, just stop playing bad and you'll get good. That's not really all that helpful, actually. And many times when I would turn on the engine and would say I made a bad move, I had no idea what it was talking about. So my suggestion is go over your game first without an engine. Try to figure out what are the positions that you just don't understand. Where did you not have a plan? Where did you not see what your opponent was doing? And try to make a note of this. Especially for longer games, I really suggest annotating them. I use Lee Chess Studies. It works very well for me. And when there's a position I just don't know, I'll go ask my coach. Or if you don't have a coach, you can just put it on Twitter and ask the chess punks, hey, I had this position. I don't know what to do. Turning on the engine will help. It'll tell you, like, you should have gone here. But that does not mean you're going to have any idea what that means. So try not to use the engine. I'm not saying don't use the engine. What I do is I annotate my game, and then I flip on the engine afterwards just to see what else I missed. Because sometimes I'll be like, wow, I'm a genius. This was a great game. And then when I flip on the engine, I realize, I should have done deeper in this spot. All right, closely associated tip number 5, coaches. They're really, really useful. But I will say, when you get a coach, you don't have to choose the coach that someone else says is good for you. Or if you aren't liking a coach's approach, you don't have to stick with them. There are so many coaches out there. Find someone that suits your needs. Maybe you're a player who says, I want to turn everything over to my coach. Tell me my openings. Give me homework. You control my whole improvement plan. You can find those people. Maybe you just want someone that you meet with once every week or two to go over some positions that you got in games that you didn't understand. Guess what? Those coaches are out there as well. So find a coach that meets your needs. Now you may be thinking, I do not have the resources for coaches. I'm sorry. And you may not, but you might not know it. My first coach was $7 an hour, and he was amazing. So there are coaches at a variety of rates. And if you can't afford that, that's fine. Find someone who's a better player than you. Again, the Twitter Chess Punks community is a great place to find those people. Find them at your local place, wherever you can find someone who's just even a little bit better than you to go over games with you will help a tremendous amount. All right, tip number 6. Over the board chess is really fun, but also really stressful. So know that going into your first tournament that you probably won't do that well. If you've never played over the board before, it's just has this whole other next level of stress, having like driven to this event. Everyone drove there. Everyone's amped up to play. Everyone's bringing their A game. When you get ahead, people do not just immediately resign. They drove an hour for this. They are going to fight like crazy to try to keep this a close game or come back or swindle you. So it's fun, but it's stressful. And my other piece of advice is practice with a board ahead of time. It doesn't have to be a game. I mean, that would be great, but I didn't have anyone to play with. So what I was doing is doing my calculation work on a physical board before my first game. I just put out positions, tried to solve them, practiced staring at a physical board, because if you've never played on a three-dimensional board before, it is jarring to go from 2D to 3D, and I don't recommend doing that in your first over-the-board event. So practice on a board and do over the board. It's fun. It is fun. Stressful, but fun. All right. Number 7, you're not going to be able to hide from endgames forever. I sort of found this out the hard way. I did a little bit of endgame work, but I was like, whatever, I play sharp openings. You're going to need to learn some endgames at some point. So for instance, I put up a position here. If you do not know who wins this, no matter whose move it is, you've got a long way to go in the endgame, and that's okay. But there are basic things you need to know. Pretty early on in your develop, you're gonna need to know things like opposition. But what I'm not saying is you need to go out, buy 100 endgames you must know, and try to memorize 50 rook pawn endings. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is, at some point around at least like 1600, you're gonna need to know basics like most rook pawn endings are draws, and that maybe in the right circumstance you can win or lose one, but it's pretty important to know that kind of stuff. And a great work for that is Silman's complete endgame course. He actually breaks down endgame knowledge by rating level. And I think he's off a bit, but that's kind of irrelevant. It's a great opportunity to just kind of take a little wade into the endgame pool without feeling you have to dive in all the way. All right, number 8. Having an opening repertoire is important, but memorizing a lot of theory before at least like 1600 where I am is not going to be the thing that is what you need at this point. What you need are other things like strategy, end games. I do think though it's important to know what you're doing. Like if someone plays the French against you, if on move 2 you're like, I don't know, I have no idea, I've never seen this before, I'm just going to play by opening principles. That's probably not the best recipe. If nothing else, it's not the best recipe for confidence, right? So my thought is you at least want to have some sort of plan against each of the primary openings that you're going to see on a regular basis. Again, that doesn't necessarily mean memorizing 16 moves or something, because I'm gonna let you know, if you're below like 2000, move 7, your opponent is not going to make the right move. And you're going to be looking at your opponent going, what are you doing? You messed it all up. You messed it all up. I had move 16 memorized. What are you doing? And now you're going to be on your own. And if you know sort of what you do against the Caro-Kann, that is going to suit you better than memorizing 16 moves against the advanced variation. Okay, number 9, regular chess learning adds up. This is so important. My theory is very much in the Neil Bruce mindset, which is do it every day. It doesn't have to be a lot. Maybe it's 10 minutes. Maybe it's 30 minutes. Maybe you take a day off here and there. That's fine, especially if it's intentional. But it really adds up. So let me give you some numbers. If you were to study chess 1 hour a day over a year, that is 365 hours. That is quite a bit of chess. Quite a bit of chess. Now, I said before, do some tactics puzzles. If you do 10 a day, which really doesn't sound that bad, 10 puzzles a day for a whole year is 3,600 puzzles. That's a lot of puzzles in a year. By the end of the year, that really adds up. So my point is simply this. Keep at it every day. Do a little bit every day if you're serious about improvement. And it just adds up. It compounds. It's like interest. It compounds. It keeps coming. All right. My last tip for today, let's have fun with the process. If you're not having fun with it and you're getting really stressed about, I said I would do end games and I hate end games and I'm going to do them anyway, it's really hard to keep at it. So I say do what makes you happy with chess. Have fun with it. If that means you're not going to study as much end games, oh well. Will that bite you at some point? Of course. And at that point, you may go, you know what would be fun? To do some end games. That might be fun now. But do what's fun. Have fun with the process. Don't obsess over your rating unless somehow that's fun for you. But try to have fun with the process. And I hope these tips were helpful. And I'll see you next time.